Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at Pitafi World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at the recent development. Of course, the National Assembly has adopted a resolution rejecting the decision of the three-member bench of the Supreme Court, in which the ECP's earlier decision and announcement regarding polls in Punjab and the delay in elections in a new date of October 8th was declared unconstitutional. And as a result, the Supreme Court, as part of its judgment, also announced May 14th as a new date for polls to be held in Punjab, following which the ECP has issued a new notification for the polls to be held on the 14th of May, and as well as issued a schedule of the elections. At the same time, of course, we heard coming in from the federal cabinet and the Prime Minister and other leaders of the political setup that this is something that they reject and refuse to accept, and that this is not in line with the Constitution or with the integrity of the Supreme Court, and puts into question the impartiality of the Chief Justice and the court as well. This has now been part of a resolution that was tabled in the National Assembly today, and as part of this resolution, the rejection of this particular order also exists in line with convincing and talking with regards to the Prime Minister refusing to implement this particular decision as well, and the leaders of the Parliament called on the Prime Minister to outrightly reject this decision and not to implement it. This is important in terms of what the consequences of such actions would be and what remains to be seen in terms of the rift that now exists between the judiciary and the Parliament, with the Parliament and its leaders talking about political intervention as part of the Supreme Court, something which has been reiterated by the top leadership. This is also important in line of the dynamics that exist within the political crisis and economic crisis that Pakistan has been facing for quite some time. We know that there has been increased polarization, and even with respect to this particular decision coming in from the Supreme Court, we saw contradictory responses coming in from different quarters. Of course, the PTI talked about this as a cause for celebration, and the former Prime Minister Imran Khan also talked about his vindication. It's important also in terms of the way that this is now going to unfold in terms of what we're going to be seeing in the election, since if it's not accepted by the political setup and a notification has already been issued by the ECB, it'll be interesting to see how exactly will then the particular course of action is going to be mapped out. We also know that there is a National Security Committee meeting to be held tomorrow, in which the civil and military leadership will be taking into account the current constitutional crisis that Pakistan is currently facing, and reportedly important decisions are going to be taken. The PTI chairman has also commented on the NSC meeting tomorrow, claiming that it's going to be used for an excuse to be put forward regarding security concerns and a delay elections, and is going to pit the armed forces against the nation. This is also important in what, of course, is the question of the integrity of the state institutions. A lot of them, of course, have been put under question by different quarters within the country, and the political and economic dynamics have been shaping the conversations and narratives around jurisdictions and whose responsibility it is to take the country forward in terms of what is now the crisis that the country is facing. So we're going to take a look at all of this and try and understand where Pakistan stands today, and what this particular rift between the judiciary and the Parliament is going to be like in the next coming days and months, and whether or not it's going to unfold into deepening crisis for the country. For this and more, we have been joined, of course, in the studios by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi. We've also been joined in the studios by Qaiser Sheikh, who's Special Assistant to the Prime Minister. Thank you very much, Qaiser, for being a part of the debate. We've also been joined online by Mr. Zulfikar, who is spokesman to Chairman PPP, Mr. Bilawal, Bhutto, Zardari. Thank you very much, Zulfikar Sahab, for being part of the debate today. Qaiser Sahab, let me start with you in terms of where we stand today. Of course, it's important for the jurisdictions of the institutions to be respected, and we keep on hearing the talk around the trichotomy of power and how that needs to be respected, and understandably so. But in terms of what we have witnessed in the past and how blurred the lines have been between different institutions in terms of whatever crisis the country has been facing, it seems that even now, within this chaos and within this war between the institutions, there still doesn't seem to be any clarity of thought in terms of how exactly we're going to be able to protect this trichotomy and move forward with lines that seem to be deepening less and less in terms of the way that we want to see them, and the way the parallel jurisdictions of the institutions needs to be implemented.
Yes, Sana Maqbool, you give detail of all present situation. So it is very clear, you see, since a long time in Pakistan, you see, it is our history of Pakistani elections. You see, it is usually talked by PTI that elections are held in UK even if there is Second World War. But the history of Pakistan is that whenever there are elections, after election we feel more and more turmoil. For example, in 1970 there was an election, and after that election we could not fulfill the mandate of the people, and that was not adhered, and our country was dismembered. Then in 1977 another election was held. After the election there was again turmoil and differences, and Zulfikar, Bhutto and the allied parties against him. So there was conflict, and then there was a judicial murder of a popular leader at that time. Again, you see, this history is being prevailed since more than 50 years. So things are going on the same direction. Two parties are having differences, and conflict is up to that level that we can't, the politicians are not in a position to sort out their own problem. Then we would have to go to the judicial judgments. Now in judiciary, this is very unfortunate that 3 members benches have given a verdict, but 4 members of the same judiciary, they have categorically denied that there should not be a suo motu for this case. So now we have been from Parliament, we have been advocating that there should be a full bench verdict for that. But up to now that is not agreed, and that has been rejected. So the turmoil is there. There is one clear decision by the parliamentarians. We made a resolution today, and we mentioned categorically that this 3-member bench judgment is not acceptable. Now the conflict is there, and I had a detailed speech yesterday in the parliament, and I mentioned that always this has been a history in Pakistan. It's not the first time. So we would have to find some amicable way between the politicians. If it is not like that, the things are similar course of action which we have our history. I mentioned about 1970 and 77 elections. Even after that, whenever there were elections, never the results of any election were accepted by all parties. So we would have to find a way out for that. You see, this judicial differences are there within their own their cabinet, their own brother judges. So the differences are there, and let's find out, because the clear-cut gulf is there. They have communicated their judgment to the Election Commission. Election Commission has now announced the dates of the election, but we feel that this is not the job of judges to give dates, to have all these details of election. That is the job of the Election Commission. And the clear-cut difference is there. Let's find out how the things turn, because at present both sides have taken their positions.
Right.
And we are not seeing any way of the PTI. You see, maybe they accept. It is you see, it is also very difficult that to have elections only in Punjab on one date. Practically it is difficult, and then to have another election. And at present our party is in power in centre, and later on, for example, another party, any party can be in power after the election, and then there will be national elections, and then that party can influence. Even today, at this time, if their elections are held, maybe the opposition blame that
right.
we have.
No, I understand the difficulties, but of course we're talking about the constitution and how to hold it supreme, right?
So yes, but you see, it is the constitution, how to define that? You see, when within the judges, there's we have been asking for the full bench verdict for that. So had there been full bench, it would have been acceptable to all the parties.
Right.
But now they have insisted, 3 judges are there and they have given their clear verdict, and the election commission is adhering to their, I feel still there are problems. It is not so easy to implement, but anyhow the things are, the direction is there. We have taken clear resolution, we have made clear resolution today, the whole almost unanimous resolution. There were 2 members opposing from the PTI,
Sure.
but otherwise the whole house was in favor of that resolution.
All right. Zulfikar Sahab, with regards to this resolution, I want to understand, of course, we've seen previously and we've spoken to legal experts about the Supreme Court judgment and how, of course, once a judgment is passed, it's binding to implement that particular judgment. But I understand that the prerequisites or foundations on which the National Assembly resolution is standing on claims that perhaps this is not something which is fair. But we have been hearing this particular sort of feedback coming in regarding other Supreme Court judgments in the past as well. But it's always been the case that with regards to a judgment of the Supreme Court, it is binding to be implemented. I want to understand what sort of power will this National Assembly resolution have in actually not implementing the Supreme Court's judgment. There is, of course, again, the talk about forming a full court bench and respecting the decision of the majority. But if that's not done so, and we have the ECP already notifying May 14th as the election date, then where does this resolution fit in?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Sana, for inviting me to your show. You see, your question is very pertinent. The resolution which has been passed by the National Assembly of Pakistan, it has its own importance, but it has got nothing to do with the judgment passed by the Supreme Court. We have to understand the confusion that has been created by the Supreme Court. That let me take you back on the issue of 63A. The judges are themselves confused that the interpretation of 63A was given once on a different note, and the second judgment was given on a different note. The total, it was a contradictory judgments. So now when the number of judges was slashed down and rest of the judges who just quitted the bench and they gave their own, so there is a saying that there is a difference between 4 and 3 or the majority and the minority. We have to understand one thing which is very important. Beside, let me talk about this, then I will talk about the resolution in the National Assembly as well. So we have to understand first thing, when it comes to a particular such a important institution of the country, which is judiciary, it was the duty of the Chief Justice of Pakistan. He has to, take steps which result in reducing the polarization in the country, in general public, in the political parties. It would have been very nice and better and best that if he had made a larger bench and all the judges have given their own verdicts or their own stances in that particular bench, and things would have been clear. But nevertheless, the 3-member judge has given, this has got nothing to do with the resolution. But when there will be any contempt of court or any binding which is not being followed by the government, and then when it comes that the Supreme Court is going to ask the government that why are you not doing this thing, I think then there is a direct conflict between the two institutions. And we have to keep in our mind that Parliament is the supreme institution in Pakistan, and it has to be respected, but judiciary has its own respect. But that resolution cannot influence the judgment of the Supreme Court. But we have to understand, so when this conflict is going to arise, the judges are going to ask about on a note of contempt about this not implementing about the elections, that they are not getting the money, the election commission is not getting the money, or the provincial cabinet.
So Zulfikar Sahab, what you're saying is essentially that we have the National Assembly resolution that's been passed, and without any sort of counter decision or measure taken by the Supreme Court, this can just be taken as a rejection of the judgment, and the current political setup can just not implement it. And then the consequences will unfold as it is.
You see the consequences. We will see the consequences as every day is going to be a chaos in the country, and every day, and this has been, we are going to watch every day what is happening after this national security, and as long as every day is passing, the election day is coming closer. So there is going to be more and more conflict between the institutions, and it is very necessary that the Chief Justice of Pakistan and the Parliament, especially when it comes to the government and cabinet and rest of the political forces, they have to understand that Pakistan is very important, and they have to sort out the issues, because this conflict is not going anywhere. There is no end to
Right.
this
Okay.
conflict, and
Right.
this
Okay. I understand.
conflict can it can, this conflict can only be resorted once there is the judicial house. There is the Chief Justice has to put his house in order, and uh, all the judges have to come on one page or one board, and majority will prevail. So that is going to give us the clarity that what is the future course of action, what is the action plan for future in the country, because there is no question that nobody is going to respect the judiciary, or nobody is going to follow the question. There is no question about it. Every
All right.
party, every stakeholder is going to
Okay,
follow the
okay,
constitution.
Zulfikar Sahab, I
But
understand, but let me take in Farrukh's opinion as well. And Farrukh, as our in-house historian and encyclopedia, I want to understand what do you think about this National Assembly resolution in a historic sense as well, and whether or not this is an unusual step. Is there an example of this that we find in the past, and what sort of consequence do you think we can learn from in terms of what has happened in the past?
Right. Sana, first of all, I should compliment you for calling me historian. I mean, on this year, how many times you have told me I'm this expert or that expert. Sometimes I'm an economist, sometimes I'm legal expert, sometimes I'm a political analyst, and now I'm also a historian. So I am going to buy a long rack to keep all the hats that are there, so that I keep on changing them, right?
Absolutely.
But regarding the situation right now, earlier it was said the conflict between institutions. Let me ask you very simply. If you see me, holding a dagger and attacking somebody, would you call it an attack by me? Or would you call it the conflict between me and the victim, right? In this situation, what has happened? Clearly, Supreme Court of Pakistan, not even Supreme Court, a 3-member bench has arrogated to itself the authorities or powers of Lahore High Court, that is the highest court of Punjab. Then also the Election Commission, because it is deciding how everything would go. Then also the Defense Ministry, because now it is clearly dictating terms to Defense Ministry, Interior Ministry, and then Finance Ministry. And finally, even though at this moment there is a gentleman who is sympathetic to the cause of PTI sitting in the presidency, but that doesn't mean that there hasn't been arrogation of his powers to the Supreme Court, because the date in the end was responsibility, as Supreme Court itself said in the previous judgment, of the president, right? So in this whole story, if one institution is overreaching, what do? I know that you shouldn't be criticizing, institutions, especially Supreme Court. There are guardrails, there are safeguards to ensure that. But what do you do when somebody is clearly wrong, right? For example, let me give you a hypothetical. Tomorrow morning, Chief Justice comes to the podium, or actually comes to the court and says that from today onwards, I'm going to be the supreme leader of the country. What are you going to do? Is the parliament supposed to keep on sitting, take it lying down? Regarding your question as to what exactly does this resolution actually signify, it is when the other side has taken or usurped so many powers of other institutions against the basic principle, fundamental principle of the Constitution, that is trichotomy of power, then the National Assembly has the right to keep its toe in the door, to ensure that that it has options, At this moment, all the allies of the present government and all the parliamentarians, more or less, actually have supported the government and told the government not to obey this judgment, right? Now, you're right, that resolution on its own is non-binding. It has no legal significance for the executive, barring one thing. Remember that the executive has a chief, and that chief executive is the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and that Prime Minister is elected by the very same parliament. So tomorrow, if the government wants, it can say that we couldn't do it because the parliament would have then voted us out, right? This is a possibility. So even though it is not a liable, not binding, it has its impact on the executive as well. Now let us talk about the situation at this moment. I call it, many people have called the current crisis, somebody has used poly crisis, somebody has used another crisis. I would call it, the long crisis. Why is it long? Because a meaningful change will take its sweet time in coming. Let me give you an example. Our economic situation at this moment. We are still negotiating with IMF. Today there was great news that Saudi Arabia has provided IMF with the assurances that were needed. Other countries are going to do that as well, but that is going to take time. And after that, you will finally see the resolution of the problem, right? Similarly, what we are going through at this moment, Sana, is the detox of this system, right? As Supreme Court has very kindly pointed out or proven to everybody who was a detractor of Supreme Court's overreach, there are people who are clearly sympathetic to Imran Khan Saab's cause, right? There must be in other institutions as well. So gradually, each and every one will keep passing out, will keep actually retiring sooner or later. So the actual game is to stay in power and stay, stay put till the time all those elements have been flushed out of the system. And how does that happen? I told you about April and May difference, right? There's going to be umpteen milestones of this sort, but this detox is happening. Those who are celebrating right now because of the verdict that came are actually, they remind me of the slow boiling frog, right? When you put a frog in any utensil and then you start, slow boiling it. Initially it thinks it is free. It is enjoying the liberty of being in water, amphibious and all, but eventually it proves to be their funeral. At this time also, there are, very clear signs. For example, there was a law that was passed by this assembly, by the parliament actually, and it was sent to the president. That law, after president actually tries to pocket veto it, actually comes back to the, the parliament, and then that parliament, once it sends it again, it automatically becomes law. So within next 20 days, that is going to happen, right? Time is in the government's favor. So all you have to do is just stay back, enjoy that the frog is celebrating, that it is swimming around, and then actually whenever that cleanse has taken place, then go for elections and ensure. Well, regarding the government's concern as well, I understand it. The fact that the 3-member bench has already proven that it is so lopsided and it is so much one-sided, that has proven to the government that if elections take place now, what will happen? There are umpteen constituencies where you are going to have margin of 3,000 votes, 4,000 votes, and there the court can actually play a role in support of PTI. So why would you accept that kind of tilted stadium to play anything? You will demand that it is actually corrected and then you will play. So this is exactly what is happening at this moment. So let us wait and see. There are other ideas that I will discuss, but I have taken a lot of your time.
Sure. Qaiser Sahab, the issue regarding the national security meeting tomorrow is also important, because it is again being the picture that is being painted by the PTI chairman seems to be that that's being held to sort of come up with an excuse regarding security concerns once again about the elections, or whatever decisions that are going to be taken as part of the meeting, for that to be used as a basis of delaying the elections, or as he says, for the government to run away from them. So in terms of what we are facing today and the kind of constitutional crisis that exists, what can be expected from the national security meeting tomorrow, and the fact that it is being held tomorrow?
The National Security Committee meeting is very important tomorrow. You see, the various aspects are to be discussed there. Mr. Pitafi mentioned very clearly today we have an economic mess, and huge problems are there. And today we had a meeting of National Assembly Standing Committee on Finance. So the conflict we have between the politicians, the impact of that is that since 15 months, there is no president of National Bank of Pakistan. The main bank of government, president is not appointed since 15 months. I asked them categorically. Then again, the Agriculture Development Bank, there is no president. Then there is a competition commission which secures about the prohibits about the cartels or the monopolies. So that board, 5-member board, since very long there is only one chairperson of that competition commission. 4 members of the board are not existing there. So that these things, because of the differences, because of the conflict and having turmoil between the political parties, all these financial matters are being evolved, and things are not in favor of. Today our economy stands still. The currency is at lowest ebb. Then again that policy rate is highest in the history of Pakistan. Then the reserves are declining, and things are like that. That I asked from the State Bank in the previous meeting of our Finance Committee that $3 billion was given to few rich companies 2 years ago by Mr. The Governor State Bank. So things are, nobody is going to check. And what we see that the Finance Committee, National Assembly Finance Committee, our main job is to have oversight of that. The Finance Minister, since 1 year, no federal Finance Minister even appeared in that committee. So the things are not in favor of Pakistan, and all these things are to be witnessed by the Security Committee meeting tomorrow, because if Pakistan economy is going down, and then even you see we don't have financial
right. But what about the matters regarding the Supreme Court?
Yes, Supreme Court. You see,
will that be part of the discussion tomorrow?
I don't know what they will discuss, but they should have to discuss all these aspects. This is, you see, the differences are such, and I think you see overall gap. What date they are? The originally Election Commission was mentioning 8th October, and now it is 14th of May. 4.5 months is the gap between them. And if our we have to find solution. Even if we go repeatedly to the courts, I think the solution has to be made by the political parties. I mentioned to you, it is our previous practice that because of not resolving these matters, there was a problem between Mujibur Rahman and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in 1970. There was then again Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and then Mutahida Muaz, Qawmi Muaz. The gap is there. We have to find the solution. But if we don't find the solution, then the Security Committee meeting, they would have also to see about all these matters of the country. And things can go to any extreme side. If we are not doing our own, we mentioned clearly, and there is a resolution today, and that is a clear signal. And I think it is in the interest of the PTI. Okay. If they want election, they say they wish very much to have election. We also agree that we are going to agree on the election dates when when it is it should be together on the national side and on the provincial, all elections together on one day. And you see, otherwise there is number of problems, as already mentioned, that financial matters are there, security matters are there. It's not easy to manage those elections.
Right.
So we would have to find some amicable solution. It is in the interest of the country. Otherwise, I don't see the turmoil is continued, and I don't feel that there is any resolution. The difference is not much. 4.5 months gap is there.
Absolutely.
That we would have to find some solution.
Yes,
it is in the interest of the country.
It's been a while since we've been hearing to talk about early elections, and we're now standing in May 2023, just 4 months away from the actual elections. Zulfikar Sahab, with regards to the election resolution, the ACP putting forward the election schedule, there seems to be very less time in terms of when this entire procedure is going to start and how the political parties need to, of course, act accordingly. At the same time, we know that the parliamentarians are rejecting and they passed this resolution, and of course, with regards to the bench and the Supreme Court's verdict. What is the PPP's stance regarding participating in the election meanwhile we see this whole crisis unfold? Because at the moment, it's not exactly clear whether or not we'll be seeing polls on May 14th or not. How exactly will the Supreme Court judgment unfold? Will the PPP be preparing for elections in the meantime or not?
Sana, Pakistan People's Party is ready for the elections. We have done our homework. We have shortlisted our candidates, and we have selected our candidates for particular seats in Central Punjab. And in a day or so, we will be finalizing the candidates in South Punjab as well. So whenever the election is going to be, whatever date and whatever day, Pakistan People's Party is ready to go on the streets, and we will fight on the streets, and we will have a full mood to participate in the elections.
Okay.
And
so
everybody
you don't mind if the elections are held on the 14th of May?
Not at all, because we have already, our candidates have already submitted the nominations paper in the last schedule given by the Election Commission of Pakistan, and the last day of the submitting new nomination papers is April 10th. So all the candidates are again ready to submit the nomination papers. So I don't see any problem that our party will be sitting back or not participating in any of the elections, in any of the constituencies by any means.
Right, but at the same time, you're also supporting the National Assembly resolution passed today, yes?
We are part of the National Assembly resolution, and our party is supporting the National Assembly resolution, because you see.
All right. There seems to be some sort of problem, but what I'm gathering, of course, is that there is a lot of safe play going on, which is perhaps characteristic of the PPP as well. When we talk about in terms of what has been going on, Farrukh, especially in terms of, I think we're back with Zulfikar Sahab. Zulfikar Sahab, can you hear me? No, I think there's still an issue. Zulfikar Sahab, can you say something for us, please?
Yes, I was talking about that few days back. Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari was talking on the floor of the House about judicial dictatorship. And he was also mentioning that if anything goes wrong, or any thing that any person from the judicial institution do something which is overdoing, then who is going to, oversee him? So there has to be a mechanism. So he mentioned about the 19th Amendment, that at that time it was a mistake by us, that we were under pressure and we were blackmailed by the judiciary, that we passed the 19th Amendment, unfortunately. But it's high time, and it's about time that we pass this law which has been passed right now. So there has to be a system of check and balance between in the judicial to end the judicial activism as well. So there shouldn't be any judicial dictatorship within the judiciary, especially.
Right. Farrukh, I want to understand with regards to, of course, the Prime Minister also talking about the rejection of the Supreme Court verdict and then the election campaign or the election schedule being put forward as well. Can it possibly be the case that if the ECP has issued the schedule and if political parties are taking part as per the schedule, that the current political setup, including the PMLN or the Prime Minister, can remain out of it?
Right, Sana, here's a very simple reality. You know, like Supreme Court of Pakistan Election Commission does not have its own enforcement mechanism, right? It doesn't have its own army, it doesn't have its own police, it doesn't have people who are waiting there to go out and implement whatever it wants to. So naturally, when you talk about Supreme Court, and of course it is thought to be historically thought to be one of the most powerful institutions in the country, it has unseated and even hanged prime ministers in the past, and it has done amazing miracles, right? I'm not praising it, I'm not romanticizing it, but I mean that they are considered miracles because they didn't have power, but they somehow arrogated a lot of power to themselves, and they got away with whatever they wanted. So election commission, if it is cooperating with the Supreme Court, I think it is smart move. I would not say that it is a safe play. I think that all these institutions, they are working in tandem and they are with the executive at this moment. They know what exactly is going on. Supreme Court, naturally, because it has overreached and it is trying to dictate, various departments what to do, naturally, for the time being, it figures that you keep on cooperating. In the end, holding of elections is your remit, and you can ensure that whatever you have to do, you have to do. Regarding Prime Minister and the Parliament, I was listening to you when you said that the Constitution is supreme. Then I heard the guest talking about the Parliament being supreme. It is a very important debate that goes on in every post-colonial, but British post-colonial, polity, because the British form of democracy says that Parliament is supreme, right? There is a history of fighting for their rights from Magna Carta to this day, and then the British Constitution is not written, and that's why it is said that the Parliament is more supreme. So in India, where it seems that Supreme Court might have more capacity to correct the kind of changes that are coming in India, people keep on saying that it might apply to UK, it does not apply to India because it has a written constitution. But let me compare Pakistan and India as example. In India, there has been one constitution and it has been consistently been there, right? It is not rigid constitution, but it is there. Parliament might may or may not have that kind of insecurity because there has always been a parliament as well, barring one emergency of Indira Gandhi's rule. When you talk about Pakistan, Pakistan's constitution, as I have been pointing out in the past, is a patchwork quilt. Why? Because for first decade or so, we did not have a constitution. Then we kept on changing constitutions like clothes. In 73, we finally got the current constitution, and it has been held in abeyance many a times because there were dictatorships, right? So in that kind of situation, when there are still booby traps in the constitution laid out by dictators or somebody else, what do? The only body that matters is, which has the direct mandate of the people of Pakistan, is the Parliament of Pakistan, right? Because of that, it has to be supreme. Now, if the Prime Minister says something within the Parliament, the court cannot take exception to it because it is legally, constitutionally protected speech. Similarly, when you talk about the conduct of parliamentarians, while we have seen miracles again in the past 1 year as well, coming from Supreme Court of Pakistan, but I would still say that even Supreme Court cannot go against so many people in a parliament. So regarding what is happening in regarding executive and the parliament. But let me also address a couple of more issues. Earlier you spoke about the National Security Committee's meeting tomorrow. I think that through private channels, the government of Pakistan, the incumbent coalition, should send thank you notes to Imran Khan and Supreme Court of Pakistan. Why am I saying this? Regardless of what is happening in the Supreme Court, and there is already division, and there is only a 3-member bench which can expand itself to 7-member bench that we have seen immediately after this decision also. Apart from that, you must have noticed that all institutions are actually coming together, because the crisis posed by the handlers of PTI is so severe that there were serious attempts. Every day we keep on hearing amazing stories, Sana.
Right.
For example, 2 retiring journalists actually try to dig dirt through Nadra on the family of the incumbent army chief, right? When this kind of stories come, when you hear that Faiz Hamid Saab perhaps walked away with a lot of taped conversations or videos of various influentials, with that kind of situation, it will take some time to detox the system. But all these, political parties who are together should thank PTI for bringing them together, and all institutions should be thanking this one party through its own ill-advised, activities, that it has actually brought everyone together within months. There is going to be change in presidency also, right? Because PTI kept on playing through that as well. There is a term limit of president, and no matter what, the president will be given guard of honor, all the respects, salutes and all, but he will have to leave. Similarly, the Chief Justice of Pakistan also retires in September. With all these things stacked together, the government should be celebrating. My only reason why I'm not celebrating or enjoying this whole scenario is that good people are going through hell even once again. And I mean these the honorable justices of Supreme Court who actually showed their conscience and who actually showed their competence. Because of that, they are once again being hounded by PTI, B also by their own fellow judges. This 3-member bench also is after their case, right? With that, I wanted to actually tell a small story, if you allow me. Otherwise, I can stop and wait for my turn next time.
Right, I'll just come back to you very quickly. Let me just take Qaiser Saab's opinion also with regards to what you've been saying in terms of how the political leaders need to step up and protect the country from the kind of crisis that seems to be coming in and deepening within the country. But when we take a look at the very highly polarized society at the moment, and especially the way that political parties with the PTI and the coalition parties are interacting, do you see any possibility of any proper engagement between the two sides?
Yes, Sana, I very much feel that there is no other option available. And you see, at present, there are 2 parties. One, there is mainly PTI. Other is a coalition of our all combined parties. So I feel that both sides are agreeing to the election. We say that elections we agree to the election. We are for election. So the difference is only for the dates of the election. Otherwise, what is the difference? The country is not in a position, the turmoil is there, the economic conditions are miserable. I tell you, today's 35% is the inflation rate. That has been the highest in the history of Pakistan. So common persons, they are being suffered. And there is a pressure on both these sides from their voters that the things are not to be discussed and to debated for their favor also. That should be the welfare of the people, the benefit of the country. You see, our countries, I have noticed that India's export this year is $750 billion US, while we are still resting with 35 billion. So they have become 25 times to us. For in all aspects in our economy, we are losing because of this turmoil. And the saner elements, they should, I think they will come to it. They will follow it. They have to do it. There is no other option available. Otherwise, the people are not giving them their votes, or they will not be their favorite candidates.
Right.
If both sides are not resolving these matters, they are losing their vote bank. I tell you frankly, being a politician there.
Absolutely.
Because the things are not, they are miserable, and the people are suffering, and our parties are not finding some way out or solution.
Right, I understand that. Let me just quickly go to Zulfikar Sahab as we're short on time. Zulfikar Sahab, the rift between the judiciary and the parliament, of course, seems to be increasing, but it seems that what we really want is the strengthening of the institution and the process. But do you see that this particular aspect of the resolution and the stance that the executive has taken will not bode well in terms of the reaction coming in from the Supreme Court, or how it's going to unfold in light of the elections and otherwise as well?
I think time will tell us that how these all consequences are going to unfold itself, because I don't see any kind of resolution or any amicable solution coming out to sort out the issue between these institutions. I think elections, one side, the judiciary is going to push for the elections and the parliament is going to hold on to the elections. And what Mr. Qaiser Sheikh was saying, that we have to look for an amicable solution. I just want to take back for 1 minute to you. So when the PDM platform was created, it was the brainchild of Mr. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. The reason behind was that all the parties should be on one platform. Whether we fight with each other on the grounds and we have our own manifestos, the only one party which is left behind, that they are not coming on the table because politically immature leader is not understanding the importance of sorting out the issues and reducing or slashing down.
Absolutely, and I understand that, Zulfikar Sahab, why the consensus is important and the basis of the PDM. Yes, Farrukh, you have half a minute to tell your story.
Very quickly, because so many people have come under attack from PTI, from Army Chief, from Prime Minister, DGISI, and senior officers of ISI, and then the Honorable Court, especially Qazi Faizi Sahab, Athar Minallah Sahab, Justice Shah, and umpteen other people, great people, right? For them, I have a heartening story, and that is that a man dies and goes to heaven. At the gate of heaven, he is accosted by Saint Peter, right? And Saint Peter asks, "Are you sent here?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Okay, show me your scars." He says, "I don't have any scars." He says, "Show me your scars, man." Then this man says, "Look, I didn't have any scars, and I don't know why you are asking me this question." He says, St. Peter says, "Why was there nothing worth fighting for? All these scars that you have been inflicted with, embrace them, and this is going to ensure that you are on the road to greatness."
Right, and on that note, we're going to conclude the segment. Thank you, Farrukh. Thank you, Qaiser Sahab, for joining us. Thank you, Zulfikar Ali Badr Sahab, for being a part of the discussion as well. That's all we have from the debate. We'll see you tomorrow.